Now batting here on BronxNet, the first designated hitter in Major League Baseball history, Yankee great Ron Blomberg. Good morning, Ron. It feels like yesterday that we got a chance to watch a Yankee-Red Sox game with you, the rivalry right here on Morris Park Avenue in the Bronx. I can't believe that that was 10 years ago. Time really flies.
Well, Robert, it's great to be able to talk to you and talking to you and Chris. This is great. You know a lot about me. I know a lot about you. And, we used to meet at Old Timers Day. And, unfortunately, last year we didn't have it. Of course, this year we don't have it. But next year, it's going to be a great year. And we're going to be talking about about all this great stuff. And we're not going to talk about the UFOs either.
No, that's a good idea not to do that. I was trying to do my best Bob Shepard impersonation there and opening up this segment and introing you. But at least we have some good things to talk about. And one of them, of course, is your second book. I'm really excited to talk about your second book, The Captain and Me, On and Off the Field with Thurman Munson. I know that you believe stats don't tell the whole story when it comes to the captain, and you've gone so far to say, Ron, that this isn't a baseball book, but it's a book about a great person. Tell us more about it.
For the last 4 or 5 years, I've been seeing Thurman's vote total for the Hall of Fame keep on going down and down and down. And I'm saying to myself, this is ridiculous. This guy was our team captain, number one. Number two, he was such a leader on and off the field. And he was such a wonderful human being to his family and to me and to all his teammates. And I'm looking at all the guys that actually getting in, from Ted Simmons to Johnny Bench to Carlton Fisk. And I'm not taking anything away from them. But you cannot find a better catcher that did so much with a team and became a captain in the biggest city in sports, New York City. The writers did not like Thurman. Let's just be honest. Thurman was a dirty type of guy. Thurman was a gritter when he came to the field. He was a no-nonsense guy, didn't like to talk to writers. Only time he ever spoke to writers with a Dick Young or Maury Allen or Red Foley or Maury Allen, people like that. And when the younger guys came down to interview him, they're scared to death to interview him, but they would always ask him a dumb question. And he would never take that for an answer, to be honest with you. And he used to really go down and really kill these writers. And he was known for that. And, that was Thurman. Thurman was a blue-collar guy from Canton, Ohio. And he was a no-nonsense. And unfortunately, he did not come from a great background with his father. Most people knew about that he didn't have a great relationship with his father. So, but when he was on that baseball field, when he put that Yankee pinstripes on, he was all business. And, but when he was behind that plate, he was the best of the best. There's a lot of great things that I'm going to be doing with this book. And I want people to know what type he was. Also, on the field, he was a captain. And off the field, how great a person he was.
Ron, I think it's a great point that you bring up, because a few years back, we actually had the late great sports writer Phil Pepe in studio with us, and he had written a book about the Yankees. And I spoke to him, and I said to him that I firmly believe that both Thurman Munson and Roger Maris deserve enshrinement into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I think it's not just the numbers, but it's also a talking point like the character clause for both of those guys. And that should be something that should be factored into the Baseball Hall of Fame when we're talking about not only great players, but great people. And for our younger fans that are tuning in that might not know that much about Munson, first, you got to go get the book. But secondly, tragically passed away in 1979 at the age of 32, so very young in his career still, that following that plane crash in his native Ohio. Munson was a 7-time All-Star who won Rookie of the Year, 1976 American League Most Valuable Player Award, 3 Gold Gloves, and 2 championships. I said to Phil on the show, Ron, that like you mentioned, you talk about contemporaries. I think Thurman Munson was definitely as good as Gary Carter. I think he was definitely as good as Carlton Fisk. and now Ted Simmons going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. The only player of that mix that might get more credit than Munson is probably Johnny Bench.
I think so too, because they had that great team with Cincinnati, and he hit quite a few home runs. Okay, let me talk to you. Well, I'm throwing out the stats. Okay, I'm talking about just catching. I'm just talking about catching. When Thurman used to catch, he became a leader. When he got behind the dish back there, he became the captain. He became a superhuman person. This guy could control any pitching staff in the game of baseball. This guy, we didn't know anything about analytics, about how to play this guy there, this guy, you look in all the computers. This guy had it in his head. This guy, when he was back behind the plate, he knew exactly the pitcher that he had on the mound. Now, do you have to baby that pitcher? Do you have to kick him in the butt? Now, do you have to, hold him, embrace him, and say everything is fine? He knew exactly how to, his temperament. He knew how to take care of that pitcher. But he knew exactly every hitter that was up there and knew how to call a game if he had to throw the ball inside and away, if he had to call a slider away, he had to call a fastball behind his head. Thurman was that type of guy. And nobody can ever tell, hey, Thurman didn't have the greatest arm in the whole world. He didn't have the greatest arm, but he had the quickest release ever as a catcher. If you look at the release, as soon as he got the ball, he just threw. Okay. Now, but if you look at, how many guys he threw out, because number one, he was very unorthodox how he threw. He would throw over the top, threw on the side. He throw the ball like a submarine and always get down to second base. Even if he got down to second base, even if it took a one bounce throw, it was right on the bag, bang, bang, like that. And he was so good about that. And look what he's done. Hey, when you play in the city of New York, you play into the biggest city, the best fans in the whole world, and they know everything.
I think you make that point, Ron, that Thurman Munson definitely had the makeup to play catcher. And that's why I couldn't believe that someone like Phil Pepe, who was so involved with the Hall of Fame, it might speak to those bias that you were speaking of before, that he felt that Munson, isn't a Hall of Famer.
I have no idea why, because he was a guy that Thurman didn't like. And I'm just being upfront with you. And he didn't like a lot of writers, but the writers that were the beat writers that was with the team all the time, they knew how to react towards Thurman. Okay. The younger guys, these are the guys who scared the death of them. So he had a bad reputation. Let's be honest, and what I wanted to do with this book is to really show what type of a person he was off the field. He was a wonderful family person. Him and Diana was a high school sweetheart. He died in a plane crash because he wanted to stay home and see his family. They had an off day in Cleveland, and he wanted to go back home to Canton, and that's what he did. And being his roommate for 5 years, we did so many things together. Robert, we did so many telethons. We did the Jerry Lewis telethon so many years. We did the Shriners telethons every single year. He loved kids. Whenever there was a child that was sick, he would always hug them like it was his, and always had a baseball to give to them. And, and the parents were always afraid, because when they saw when Thurman would hug the kid and talk to him, they always knew what type of guy he was. He was really a rough type of guy, because half the time he came to the ballpark, he never shaved. He looked tough. He looked like he's been out all night long. He looked like he'd been sleeping underneath the rock the whole night.
That was part one of our interview with Yankee great Ron Blomberg. Tune in next Monday for part two.